Hello and welcome to a CX Moment. As always, we're going to touch on customer support operations and customer experience. But today we're going to do something a little different. I hope you find it cool. We're really going to dive into the people side of customer service and the relationship that can make a huge difference in your support organization. We're talking about the partnership with HR or people ops or people in places, whatever your company calls that very important team. Our guest today is Stephanie Dorman from Mediaocean, and she loves to answer questions. So please drop them into the Q&A. And if you like what you hear, please share it using hashtag CX Moment. Now that we've covered all the basics, let's go ahead and get started. I am Sarah Reed from Zendesk, and let's say hello to Stephanie from Mediaocean.
Hi,
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing great.
Good to hear. All right. Well, why don't we go ahead and start with a little bit of an overview? Mediaocean. For the layperson, how does one work with you?
Mediaocean is an advertising software company. It's probably the easiest way I can say it. So, when you think about advertising that you see in front of your face on TV, in print, online, that you hear on the radio, that has to get to your eyeballs and your ears somehow. So, our software makes that happen. And kind of the easiest way I can put it is if you're a big Super Bowl fan, about 95% of the ads that you see on the Super Bowl run through our system. So we're basically the background system for that. And there's, much more that we do in terms of omni-channel advertising. But for the layperson, I think that's the best way to explain it.
Well, thank you. That actually helped out a lot. And so I would guess then that it's pretty imperative that things work right because companies are spending a lot of money, and therefore your support organization is really important and has to provide very real-time assistance to your clients.
We're processing billions and billions of dollars worth of advertising. I mean, I think this year or next year, we're projected to be over $200 billion worth of advertising spend. So there's really not a lot of room for error, but we're also a software company. And as you well know, software is not perfect. And as you evolve software, you certainly need to make sure you have the structure in place to support it. I think what's interesting or different for us is that we are purely B2B. So we are always working with end users and key points of contact. It's contacts at all levels of the organization with our customers.
You've been talking, you mentioned support, and you were responsible for your support organization for a great number of years. In fact, the bulk of your career has been in client services and support
Yeah.
until recently, which we'll get into. But what did you love most about being in a support leadership role?
I really think about how great it was to lead through evolution. When I first started and I've been working with support teams for many, many years, but over 10 years ago, when I started at the company I'm at now at Mediaocean, we didn't really have a very great support structure. It was just getting built out. We were the result of several acquisitions that were coming together and supporting via spreadsheet and JIRA tickets and phone calls and things that just didn't get tracked correctly. So over the years, we have just continued to evolve. I've had a great leadership team, and we've watched our support structure absolutely flourish. And with that, we've built a support philosophy. And it's funny how that happens when you can look back one day and you can say, we actually have a philosophy. We have a way of doing things that we firmly believe in that's become really foundational to how we service people. And it proves itself out when your CSAT is super high year after year after year, even if sometimes your customers are upset with your product, because that does happen. Knowing that you've got that service that balances that out and backs that up, it's very rewarding.
I'm sure there are a lot of people listening today who are in similar situations, either that they're at that forefront of growth and scale, and they're trying to figure out, how do I take all this great data that I'm pulling in into all these spreadsheets and figure out how to actually scale and make this in a high performing contact center? Or they're at the upper level of that, where now to what you're talking about, they're able to really strategize and look across the org and think, oh, we've built this, but now what's next?
Yeah,
So you transitioned into a people and culture role about a year ago. Is that correct?
that's correct. After spending my entire life on the customer side, I decided it was time for an adventure.
All right, so why? Like why move from this incredible support career into, of all things, people and culture? Like people are tough.
Yeah, especially in the middle of a pandemic and after a big acquisition. We had a really strong traditional HR bench at Mediaocean. Several folks who had been with the company for, over 10 years with a lot of deep experience. But one thing we didn't have was a connection between our business and our HR. And as we are going through a global pandemic and we're dealing with all sorts of new issues in terms of wellness and mental health and
Mhm.
even just the challenges of supporting working parents, our board and our CEO thought it would be a really great idea to take somebody from the business side who had exhibited, strong leadership throughout the years and kind of put me in this people and culture team. And it's funny because when I was first offered this position, I actually declined it. Um, I thought, I'm not going to do this. And then I really slept on it. And I woke up the next morning and I was like, I'm going to do this. This will be a really good experiment, I think, for the company. And I think it's something that could really build partnerships. A year later, I got to tell you, it's probably the hardest job, but the most rewarding job I've ever had.
Well, we're going to dive into a lot of the facets of that because you have a really unique approach, in my opinion, on how you look at support roles. And so, for everyone listening today, if there are things that are top of mind to you, put them in the Q&A so we make sure that we get to them. And I'm talking about things like hiring and career pathing and titles, the health and wellness that Stephanie mentioned, performance management, retention, rewards and recognition, you name it. Steph has an opinion on all of it, and it's worth hearing. So I want to make sure that we hit on those important facets that are most important to you. So drop those in the Q&A. But what I'm really curious about before all those questions get started is, has this new role, now that you're in people and culture, has it made you think differently about support?
Yes. And kind of in an interesting way, I talked a little bit about philosophy. I think that today Stephanie would happily go back and debate pretty hefty with the Stephanie of 3 years ago, because when you have this philosophy that is foundational and it is successful, you kind of start relying on it. And as I look back now at how we continue to service our customers, and by the way, we continue to do a great job, and I love that. But I do feel that we have become kind of stuck in some of these great philosophies, and we're therefore not really thinking about how we might be able to take some risks and do things differently. And there's a couple of examples of this. For instance, we really focused on being scalable. And that was huge because as we're growing in both product and geography, we're not going to want to continue to hire people, at this massive rate and kind of cannibalize new revenue.
Right.
So what we really did for many years was just continue to look at ways to career path and shift people and move folks around. But interestingly, in the last year, high touch has really come back. I see a huge trend towards high touch service. And we do have high touch in the form of consultative support, but we do have this scalable model where we have teams of people. We don't really have dedicated staff for any client. And yet our clients are really, really demanding more high touch, more dedicated staff. So having a way to balance that, I'm looking at that much differently than I did before.
Now, you talked about this philosophy and getting stuck. And how do you know? Like, how do you know when things are maybe just humming along and things are well? When do you have to inject something different into your support org? Like, what are those
What
signs?
you just said, when things are humming along, and doing well. That's exactly the right time to inject something new and be willing to take that risk. And, I think about like, great timely example, remote working. There was a time that our philosophy was very, very strong about, or how we had a very strong opinion, I should say, about people who are in a support organization do best when they're in the office together.
Right, right.
And we just simply can't look at it that way anymore because, quite frankly, it's not true. I think there's definitely benefits to being together, but we no longer need to be that strict, nor should we be. And if we were, we would lose people. But we need to rethink about, this virtual workforce and how, when we do return to the office, we can be successful in a hybrid manner. And that takes a lot of thought, right? But
Mhm.
that's something that 5 years ago we would have said no. Very few remote folks in our team.
And do you think that, so the pandemic certainly has accelerated that, right? We've accelerated just the way that we're thinking about remote and digital and distributed workforces. Do you think that the pandemic has also accelerated the importance of customer support?
I'm going to probably be unpopular here and say no, because I think customer support is always important. And I don't want to be a cliche and say that the pandemic had all of this impact on things that, maybe it didn't. So, remote working, yes. The ability to be global and seamless and quick moving, absolutely. But at the end of the day, service has always been what drives a customer to want to work with your business, period. You can have okay products, you can have great products, you can probably even have pretty crappy products. But if you get really good service, you're going to feel loyal and invested, and you're actually going to want to help your business partner improve and be loyal to that. So, I actually think that's always been something that's been there. It's just how you think about it and how you actually execute on it.
I like that and appreciate that. And I hope that that is a mantra that is in the hearts and minds of C-suites everywhere, that regardless of what's going on in the industry, regardless of what's going on in your own organization, support can be that differentiator, and it can be that thing that really creates loyal and passionate customers. All right. So before we dive into some of the specific things, I want to set the stage a little bit with, you were in support, you're now in people and culture. How should those two orgs, how should they partner? Like what's the right type of relationship? Because I think in a lot of organizations it can be a little contentious.
Well, yeah, I mean, so HR is the place where you send performance issues, right? And you deal with the things that feel like you're going to the principal's office. So I think the first thing you need to do is really seek to understand how you can partner with your HR team. And one of the reasons why we kind of rebranded our HR team to people and culture is because we wanted to kind of, you know, shave off that stigma that HR is all negative stuff or benefits. It's so much more than that, and all of these things are super important. But your people and culture team should be strategic partners, should be helping you to understand your compensation strategy, your hiring strategy, how to infuse DE and I throughout your organization. If you have a top heavy, gender issue or a minority issue, how you can look to do succession planning that might get you in a better place and set some targets for that. And these are all things that I think, you've got to seek to understand before you're understood. But I'd also say it's the flip side, understanding from what typically can be an administrative or even bureaucratic team at times, asking yourselves, why are we having our business leaders jump through hoops to change a title or to take a step to do something that we could really just accept an email or maybe start ticketing thing. I'm big on tickets. So we're building tickets for everything, and these are the types of things I've really pushed my current team to do, is look at what you're doing and think about how much time you're asking our business leaders to spend doing it, and ask yourself, is it really necessary to do these things?
All right, so why are you so big on tickets? What advantage are you seeing in your people organization to push everything into a ticket?
I mean, it's tracking and accountability, hands down. We did, it's kind of embarrassing, but our people and culture team does a lot via email. And when
Mm,
you bring that support mindset in, it all in your head converts to tickets. It's just how you look at things. So you can easily look at a process and say, let's ticket that. And we've been doing that and we're doing more of it. It's just, it's just so, to me, it's obvious, but to the team, it actually
it
wasn't
was.
obvious.
So that is potentially a really great starting place for a support leader to engage with their counterpart on the HR people ops side and talk about potentially, some efficiency and some tracking and to better understand each other. All right.
Absolutely.
We've got some questions, and I want to get to these. The first one, Lexi's asking, why do you believe high touch, or actually, this is from Tyler Robinson. So thank you, Tyler. Why do you believe high touch is on the rise?
You know, and maybe this is a B2B thing, but I certainly see as we're going through contract renewals and talking to our largest customers and even our smallest customers that they are consistently asking for more hands-on service, more hands-on support, more strategic support. And this is something that, if I go back 10 years, it was very much, I need the help when I need it fast. And now it's, I need that. Plus, I also need for you to really show us how we can do better at using your platform. We want to get the most out of it. And I think over the years we've always provided that through our account management function.
Hmm.
But we do have a team of subject matter experts with an average tenure of 10 years in our support group. And we have a lot to offer there as well. And when we take that time and spend that time with them, it really stands out and goes a long way.
I'm going to ask potentially a controversial question, but do you think that we've over rotated on customer efforts and we've spent so much time in the last 10 years focusing on how do I make it easy for you versus how do I give you that specialized support?
Yeah, actually, I do. And it is controversial because it is all about like the philosophy. The philosophy is ease, right? What is the least amount of effort I can provide to my customers to get the service they need? And that still stands true today. I mean, if
Mhm.
I'm going to get service from somebody, I certainly want the least amount of effort possible. But I get much happier when somebody remembers that to use my name and knows who I am, and we've had an interaction before and they remember that. That type of stuff is much more meaningful to me now as a consumer myself. And I say consumer, but even in the B2B world,
Right.
it's much more meaningful to me. And I'm more likely to be forgiving of some of those other things if I feel that I've got that personal touch.
Oh, I very much agree with you. And don't get me wrong, I'm a huge believer in the CES metric, but I think it also has to be balanced out. And we have to be incredibly careful that we're not pushing everything into productivity and efficiency so that we've got all, our effort is really low, but yet our actual time and attention that we're spending with customers has.
Well, quick example on that just happened to me is I just bought a car via text. I
Okay.
had been looking for something for a while, found it, put an online form in. The guy calls me right away. We work via text because I told him I'm on calls all day long and I wanted it right away and I wanted to spend the least amount of time possible in the dealership. All of that was great, very personal. Texted with me to make sure we got home with the car okay. Engine light comes on. Brand new vehicle, engine light comes on. So you'd think brand new car, I'm going to be losing my mind over that. But you know what? I actually laughed about it. I was so calm about it because I just knew that I was going to get good service and get it fixed. And sure enough, the next day I did. That's what I'm talking about. It's that trust that I
Yep.
think sometimes you lose if you don't have that personal touch.
Oh, I love that. It's the trust you lose when you don't have the personal touch. We're all going to be tweeting that one out. All right. Now let's get into some specifics around support and your philosophy now, especially that you're in this people and culture role. Melissa wants to know, what are your thoughts on yearly performance reviews? And do you think that they still have to be done if you're consistently coaching staff and having transparency around performance?
I think yearly performance reviews are very 1990. I'm not a fan. I think it's a stress, first of all, an undue and unnecessary stress on your management team, and on your employees, especially since they tend to happen at the busiest time of the year. Also, when you're trying to spend time with your family, it cuts into your personal life because you're having to write these lengthy reviews. And it's unnecessary. You're going back and putting things in and wordsmithing, and you're spending so much time trying to get it right that you're kind of losing the point.
Right.
We practice continuous performance reviews and rewards and recognition. We do quarterly check-ins. We make it a quick and simple form. It takes maybe 5 to 10 minutes at max to complete, and that's if you're being super thoughtful. You could probably get through it in two if you're in the mood. And a lot of it is really just to prompt a discussion. The accountability factor in our system is really to mark off that you and your manager or your manager is, you guys have had a discussion,
Mhm.
because that's the most important thing in our minds. And we focus on the objectives that are being accomplished. We use an OKR system, um,
Mhm.
and we don't really focus on scoring or rating anymore, because again, that's very 1990s, and it just doesn't resonate well, I think. And this is, of course, my belief, but it seems to be working really well with our employee base.
I really appreciate that philosophy, and I was just having this conversation with another leader earlier this week, and we both just had this observation that when you do these yearly performance reviews, both sides, the leader and the person that you're giving the performance review to, you immediately walk into those sessions both with a little bit of angst and anxiety
A
because
little bit.
feels like this, oh my God, we have this culmination of, we have to talk about everything that's happened in the last year. And it's like, oh my God,
It's not very productive,
it's
and if you're
not.
moving fast, you're missing stuff. There's no way that it's comprehensive enough. And I just I hope that most companies are moving away from it now, because they also don't think it's good for retention. I think your employees need to know more regularly how they're doing, and some managers are really good about that, and
Right.
some managers aren't. They will wait until they have to do something to do that evaluation. If I only got told once a year how I was doing, I'd be miserable.
Retention. Let's follow on that. Ben has asked the question of how have you kept people for 10 years? You mentioned an average tenure in your support organization of 10 years. How have you done that? And how have you kept people through the pandemic when so many other companies are going through attrition challenges?
That is a great question, because we do have an attrition tsunami happening. I don't remember who coined that, but I love it because it's 1000% correct. And it's interesting because a lot of it is the focus that we've put on career pathing and being able to evolve. So over the years, I'd say go back 10 years, we were very simple and elegant about our titling structure and our compensation structure. And that was great. It was great to have support specialist one and support specialist two. And we did have a
And
career
everyone
path
knew where
that
they were headed next.
it was a step ladder. It didn't really, once we, as new generations come in and people shift and stuff, we had to move to more meaningful titles and a more meaningful career path that had both ladders and lattices, ways for people to move up, down, across, probably not down, but up and across, and even diagonally. And so we did that. We also implemented several years ago a certification bonus, so that when somebody joins the company after they've been with us for typically 6 to 9 months, and they've achieved expertise in whatever they're supporting, we will increase their salary and give them a new title. And that has really helped as well. But a lot of folks at Mediaocean look at support as a career
Mhm.
and not a stepping stone. And I think it's because it's also not, it doesn't feel like a help desk. It's very consultative. and it does require a great degree of expertise, but also have an amazing leadership team. I
Ah,
can't say enough about having the right people in leadership roles. It's not about how much you know, it's about your ability to lead people and inspire them. And the folks that, that worked with me and that continue to run the team today are absolutely amazing. People like working for them and like coming to work.
let's talk a bit about morale. And this is a question from Asia. And so I have a feeling this is going to, it marries up nicely with your leadership comment. But she's saying the product is failing, customers are angry. How do you keep up morale as a people leader?
It's really hard. It's people want to feel like they're doing a good job, and they need that to feel like they're achieving something or that their role makes sense and is meaningful. And if you have product issues and you're carrying the brunt of that, it becomes really challenging to keep your morale high. Um, I'm going to go back to leadership, yes, but I don't want to recycle the same answer. I do think that having strong leaders who are supportive and who help you see that you're not the target of this angst is helpful. But we also spend a lot of time, and you mentioned this call was from Asia. We spend a lot of time after hours. Uh, Look, I know everybody's used to the Zoom happy hours and stuff now. It was all fun, and we took pictures of each other on Zoom a year
Oh,
ago. And now it's
yes.
like, oh, another happy hour. But I will say there's a lot to be said about getting folks together, not talking about work, having some time to just cool out, play a trivia game, do a little, I can't remember that game that you play where you Jackbox TV or something like that, and just have some time to just decompress, and then also being able to call somebody and vent. It is okay to have that person that you can call up without any repercussion, without any
Yep.
worry that you're going to sound negative, and say, I'm just done today. I'm done. I want to poke needles in my eyeballs. I can't deal with this anymore, and be able to get that out of your system. You're going to find that your managers want to do the same thing, right? They also want to vent.
It's essentially I need to have an off the record conversation.
Oh yeah,
And
definitely.
that is such a valuable thing. I know I do that with a few of my team members, and ooh, it puts everything back in perspective for you just to be able to get it out. I think that is such a fabulous piece of
It
advice.
works for HR too. I have to say, even just yesterday, a colleague of mine and I had a really rough employee relations call, and afterwards we just called each other and just let it all out. I think we
Well,
had
I
some
told
pent
you
up
this was
rage or something, but we just let it all out.
this is good. I told you this would go fast. We have time for one more question, but very quickly, Dominique, I want to answer your question. CES, sorry for using an acronym. It is Customer Effort Score. That is the metric. Very quickly, then, Kimberly would like to know what high level advice do you give to a support leader that's just starting out with their support team, literally from the ground up? Do you have a couple sage pieces of advice for someone who's building a team?
I don't know if it's sage, but when I look back at what I'm the most proud of, it's that I wasn't afraid to take risks and to try something out and see it fail. And certainly when we were first building our support organization, we did a lot of kind of, when I look back now, silly things. And we failed and we had to start over and rewrite. But that's how we grew. And that's also how my leadership team and I became so close, because we all realized what we brought to the table. And it was very different. And we made such a good dynamic team with different skill sets. We led as a group instead of as individual leaders. And it really did allow us to grow and develop ourselves and be able to say, hey, we need a knowledge base. Let's pop some FAQs up on the website. And now look at us. We have this massive knowledge base powered by Zendesk with all of this great stuff on it. So that would be my probably my biggest piece of advice.
I like that. All right, we are out of time. We do have some additional questions, and we'll do our best to answer these actually offline, because I think that there's a couple great ones in here that we do want to get to. But in the interest of time, I just want to say thank you so much, Stephanie. It is always a pleasure to chat with you. And I want to thank everyone for sharing a moment with us today. You can give feedback by clicking on the provide feedback button at the very top, or check the chat for a short survey. And please join us next time when we're going to talk with Sarah Robb O'Hagan on August 12th. Sarah is the author of Extreme You, and she is the former CEO of Flywheel Sports and now the CEO of Exos. And she has some killer stories about leadership, learning from failure, and all about perseverance. We're co-hosting that show with our friends down in Australia, so it will be at 5 p.m. Pacific. Sarah is a lively conversationalist, so grab a glass of wine, join us, and I promise you it is worth your time. So with that, be safe, be helpful, and we'll chat again soon. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Stephanie.
Thank you.